You are now listening to Carly's Couch.
I'm Carly.
And I'm Lex.
In this podcast, we discuss a wide array of topics about life and how to live your best life,
whatever that looks like for you.
Hope y'all enjoy.
In this episode today, we are going to talk about your most important personal values, if you actually value what you say or do, if you're lying to yourself, and why it's important to know your own values and define them. So I think you're really going to enjoy this episode. But first, Carly, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful today. Had a rough week last week, but I'm back. Your girl's back and she's better. I feel good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. It is Friday that we're recording this, and thus far today, I've just been doing art and reading and things like that. So it's nice to be able to just take the break when you want to take a break, you know?
Absolutely. I've been seeing a meme go around. It's like, I didn't want to work a 9 to 5, so now I work 24/7, and I'm glad that you're not living that life. I'm not either.
I'm trying not to. Although sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I did feel like, pushing through, but I'm good sometimes. So I'm going to make sure we just focus on the most important things these days. And I don't know, just kind of do like what you feel like doing.
Yeah. I mean, you get one life that we know of. So why not do some stuff that you enjoy?
Pretty much. And speaking of enjoying things, thanks for enjoying the podcast. We have a review to read today. So we appreciate G David 405 who gave us 5 stars and said 5 stars for an engaging, informative podcast with wide-ranging topics for all. Truly thankful. So thank you. Thank you for listening. And please, if you haven't yet, go online and give us 5 stars. Leave a review. Leave us comments on the page online at carlyscouch.com or on YouTube or on social media. We like to see all of those things and enjoy the opportunity to engage with you.
Absolutely. And we really just started putting more content on our TikTok. So if you're on TikTok, check us out there too.
Bet. So now on to the topic at hand.
Dun, dun, dun.
Carly and I feel like we're always talking about knowing yourself and how that's basically the end all key to most things. But I think it's because, the more you know yourself, you just tend to make better decisions. So in this topic today, thinking about values, it's just one of those things that I think unless you've really sat down to think about it, you don't know what those are, or you might not know what they are. Like be able to just be like, they are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So it's important because that's a part of knowing yourself, like knowing what you stand for. So one reason that it's good to know them is because it helps you to make those more aligned decisions. What else happens when you know yourself?
I think your story about today is a perfect example of something else. Whenever you know yourself and you know your values, what you stand for, what you enjoy, like your day-to-day becomes more enjoyable because you're actually spending it doing things that fill you, taking time to fill your cup, to actually laugh and live life and feel creative and do all of those things that you know you need to do for you. And if you don't know who you are, you won't be able to do that. And you tend to just kind of get swayed of like outside influences and energy.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And also, I think your relationships are more aligned. So you're going to actually hang out with friends that you enjoy. And, it seems like a common sense thing, but I feel like we spend a lot of time with people that we actually are justifying being around, being as close as we are, hanging out, or whatever it may be, across the spectrum from family, friends, and romantic relationships. So they'll make more sense when you know yourself because you are with people you enjoy being with.
Yeah. And I think building on that, like a lot of times our quote unquote common sense and not living in our values causes us to choose jobs and careers that don't really align with who we are. So whenever you're able to know yourself, you're able to make those decisions to work with companies and clients and in positions that actually fit you and fit what you do, which overall improves your quality of life as a whole.
Yeah, I was reading up on values, and one thing I saw that I really liked is someone said when we live in line with our values, we magnify who we are. But then when we don't, we shrink into ourselves and we're diminishing who we are. So you have to know what those personal values are, but to live in your personal values really just means you're like really being yourself. So kind of pushing this even more, like this is all about how to actually be yourself, how to know yourself. And again, it seems like something where it's like, okay, well, am I just being myself day to day? But think about how often you're really motivated by what people think or what you don't want somebody to maybe do or say, or, all of those things. We have so many of those things that affect every decision we make and everything we say and do. And so really, really thinking about, you magnifying who you are is about really being firm with those values.
Yeah. And also just noticing if you're doing things, she mentioned like, caring what other people think and all that, but like out of fear or out of love. I feel like if you never really stop to question yourself and question like, what do I stand for? And like, what are my values? On a previous podcast episode, we had been like, oh man, we kind of need to go through this ourselves. So it's not just, us telling y'all, it's us kind of working through these things with ourselves as we continue to grow.
Yeah. And I feel like I said, a lot of people might know, like you might be like loyalty, because I know y'all got that loyalty tattoo on your forearm. Shout out to you underneath them 3 stars. But even if you think you know what your values are, I would challenge you to think about the spaces in your life where you may be kind of struggling. And now it's like, well, why? So whether that's in health, money, romantic relationships, friendship, or work. And I say that because, for example, maybe you started a business and you are just really like every day you're thinking like, man, I don't know if I really want to do this. I'm burnt out. I'm not making enough, blah, blah, blah. And you say your values are that you're hardworking, but you're like, man, I really don't want to like work, this hard. Like I don't want to do it, which is fine. But a lot of times we get into a weird space because it's like what we're saying we believe and then what we are doing or not doing aren't really lining up. And so because of that, now we feel kind of some kind of way. You start to have that like internal struggle. And so there's like, even with this list, there's a couple of places where I've seen that before and like struggle in my own life where it's like, all right, I'm saying I value, we can even say something like honesty or something. Like you could say you value that thing, but is all of your actions necessarily lining up to that or lining up to it being that important as you're saying? So like, obviously that don't mean you just everything coming out of my mouth is a lie, but it might mean like, oh, I might rather not hurt somebody's feelings or something or whatever it might be. Right. So there's a lot of signals that can show you're not aligned to that. Do you think that makes sense, or what do you feel about kind of looking at the spaces in your life?
Man, I have a perfect example about alignment when you're thinking about work in the space. When I used to be an engineer, making hella bread, like I was doing financially well. I enjoyed work, the people that I worked with, I would say I'm a very hard worker. So when I think about that, I'd rather be a smarter worker than a harder worker, but that's an aside. It got to a point where I hated waking up in the morning. I started being late. I didn't want to be there. And it was not reflective of who I thought my character was. And the reason is I was in a misalignment. Like I wasn't in a position and doing something that I really cared about. And so like my values is like, oh man, I actually care more about doing something that I care about than just being hardworking. And so that's kind of, I think, an example of kind of what you're talking about. Whenever there is a misalignment, you do feel like you have a value and it's something really important to you, you can kind of start to see what really matters.
Yeah, but then when it feels like it's not really aligning, I think that it's almost a relief when you can be like, you know what? Like, honesty isn't really my top value. And like to actually kind of own that / then maybe you could figure out like, what should you be doing next? Or maybe there are other things that are still awesome that you can define as, well, actually my value is more of this. And there's still the positives and pros to that. But I think that you'll just feel a little bit less internal conflict if you just keep it real about those things. Values comes into play with self-improvement because we're always talking about growing and becoming a better person, but we haven't really talked about defining what a better person is. And so developing your personal values and knowing your personal values is kind of like deciding the direction that you actually want to grow. Like this is kind of like the compass towards which I'm moving my actions, I'm moving my life. So not the same as goals, not the same as beliefs, which we'll get into in a second, but in which spaces are you really using that to guide what you do? And it's not just everything. So I think it is important to define them. I have a couple stories about myself and values. One was very recent, like a week ago now, maybe. And And I was on the phone with a friend of a friend. Damo had sent her to call me. And she wanted some advice on her social media brand. So she has kind of a particular topic that she's talked about for a while. It's part of her life story, but it's traumatic. And she's like, you know what? All of a sudden I'm like, I don't really want to talk about this anymore. Like, I don't want people to ask me about this. I don't necessarily want all my posts to be about this. Like, sure, I'm an advocate in this space, but I'm actually getting kind of tired of like retelling and reliving it. And people don't realize that I'm just reliving this story all the time. So her final kind of question was like, well, what should I do? I want to stop doing that, but what should I do? And I actually kind of used our, what was the little question?
The question episode?
Yeah.
Having deeper conversations.
I used to have a deeper conversation so I could just let her talk, because essentially what happened, like she just kept expressing this hesitation and switching up. Like, oh, I don't want to switch up on people. I don't want to like have to, move from there when that's what people want to talk about. But every time I asked her, like, so what do you actually want to stand for? She say stuff like that there are no rules to this. And it's like, okay. So eventually she talked herself into, wait, I'm talking about, I want to stand for there not being rules, and yet I'm sitting here trying to govern what I'm doing based off of rules of other people and what they expect or what they want, or I shouldn't just totally switch up my social media, when it's like, if there's no rules, do what you want to do. And so by the end of the convo, she was just like, yeah, actually, I've been saying there's no rules, so I should just switch it up and do what I want to do. And then maybe I would actually feel aligned, because it was like there's so much like just struggle with the decision, but it's because you know what you want to do, but you're trying to justify not doing it. So it wasn't making sense. And so I was like, oh, that's an interesting example that I kind of feel like aligns with this episode. And then when we mentioned this before and a few episodes back, and what Carly kind of alluded to earlier is that I was asked at one point what my values were. And I was like, I just kind of came up with some stuff that I'm like, sounds good, And yes, the things that are important to me, but it was just stuff that, if somebody asks you like what types of things you should say are important, that's what I said. But then I thought about it and I started Googling like, what are values exactly? Like, what type of words are used when people ask values? And I saw these things and I was like, oh, so now I'm starting to see like, do they look like? What are examples? What do they do for you in your life, et cetera, which is kind of what made me want to come back to this topic and now flesh it out even further.
Man, and I was so glad that you did. And my bad, Doc. I realized I was going to see your story earlier, and I was like, swerve out of it.
Oh, that's all good.
I was like,
because I ain't getting too deep into my story, but I just got put on the spot, and I was like, I don't know.
That made me think. As soon as you said it, I was like, what are my values? And like you said, the things we automatically want to say, like we said, most of the time are things we think we should. Right? It sounds good. Mm-hmm. Oh, courage. Oh, hard work. Oh, community. Whatever. Insert word here, which is not bad, wrong, otherwise, but really,
but you haven't been living by it if you're just now trying to think of what that would be. So, or maybe in time, sure, but it's not like this is my manifesto of what I'm doing. Like, it can't be if you're asking, you're just trying to think about it.
Man, I got a perfect example that I didn't even remember until this. I listened to a podcast that had Dr. Demartini on there, and he was talking about how a lot of times we'll say our values, and I guess his whole method is on our values. He's like, you'll say your values are this, and then go look at your life and actually write down what your values are. He has a whole assessment. You can Google his name. Really great information, but it's like actually looking at your life to see what your values are. And then back to Lexi's point of being that ideal version of yourself or who you want to grow into, like, is that aligned? And if not, where should you kind of switch it up? When I was thinking about my stories with values, I had something recently where I had a friendship and I was talking to my therapist about it. And he was like, well, I mean, it seems like your values, like you stand very strongly with honesty and, regardless of how it hurts the other person's feelings. And he was like, I don't think you should apologize for that. And I was like, man, because I sure was beating myself up. Like maybe I should have did that or should have not said something or should have whatever. And he was like, no, that's just obviously what you care about. And that's okay. But you just need to know that moving forward. And so I was like, oh, that's I guess that's a value that, I live by inherently without like consciously putting it out there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a good example. And then it's probably good that you were being empowered in your decision because it's like, oh, okay, like it's okay for me to decide like what things I'm gonna stand on and then move off of those. I think especially if it's something that can be consistent. And so now you can recognize your own consistencies. You feel more comfortable in living in that space and doing those things and making the decisions that you made.
Absolutely. And I like the branding story that you gave because I'm trying, like, I have my Holistically Dope Instagram page. And when I first built it, it was called Regular Girl Fitness, and it was all about fitness and food and meal prepping and all that. And I'm like, yo, I'm so much more than that. Like, I don't really want to do that anymore. But then I was like, I don't really know what I want to post. Like, it's all things self-care, but I don't know what that looks like. And I haven't really sat down to figure out what my brand values are and really what I want to push on there. And so I was posting workouts the other day, and my homegirl Ashley called me. He's like, bro, why are you posting workouts? And I was like,
like, you know, that ain't you no more.
That's exactly. She was like, you said you didn't want to do that shit. Why are you doing it? And I was like, I don't know. I was trying to post something. She's like, nah, I need you to sit down and figure out what you want to post. So you're not wasting time. And I was like, damn, you're right. My bad.
Yeah, no, that is good because again, like if you're trying to get out of the space or you don't necessarily, you want to be off it, like it's okay to be off it. I think it's okay to not try to rush to replace. Just like with relationships, like you don't have to have a rebound, like just doing some stuff just to do it. Yeah, and like really, that's a good point too with your brand. You can figure out what are the values of your brand as well, and that probably would be a good place to center your own like marketing and messaging and things like that too. So that is a good point, and something else to think about. Maybe after this, I'll think about what mine would be versus, or maybe in accordance with my brand as well, like my company brand. So now that we've been talking about it for 13 minutes, what are personal values? I'm going to go with this first point here, that personal values are long-term assessments of what is important to you and what directions you want to guide your behavior.
I like that. I think it's pretty straightforward. Personal values are the measuring sticks by which we determine what is a successful and meaningful life. So the end of your life, are the things that you're doing going to, like, would you deem yourself a success if you looked back and if you look back like, man, I spent my time doing things that were meaningful to me and that I cared about.
Or like with your example, it's kind of like, oh, if I led an honest life, because that's what success and meaningfulness means to me, is like honesty is part of that. So whatever your values are, that's what the stepping stones of those things that you've been doing. But they're different than beliefs, which this was interesting to me and trying to understand the differences here. So unlike beliefs, values aren't a filter through which you view the world. They just offer a compass in which direction to go. Whereas beliefs can be more like, whether we're talking about religion or politics, like things where it's like you've come to believe a thing is true. Values aren't like, oh, this is true or this is not. The value, so like a belief might have a value that pushes it, but the value is like, what is this thing that I want to live by? So these aren't the things that you think you should do or be. Like they're literally the things that you are. So it's okay to have the belief that, oh man, people should work hard. Maybe that's a belief you have, but that might not be the same as your value. You might think like people need to be that, but if you aren't really living with that, then that's not one of your core values. So that's interesting to me that there's a difference between like just using the terminology of a belief versus your value.
Can you give me another example? I was about to say, because I got questions about that part. Or like maybe I can try to walk you through one and you like tell me if I'm not.
Let's try to walk through it.
So let's say that I have a belief like optimistic. Like I want to see the best. Like I have a belief that I should try to see the best in every situation. But so that's a belief because it can be true or false.
What can be true or false?
Like belief. So like, I mean, I guess optimism is kind of a way of life. So maybe that's a value. Maybe that's a bad example, but I was trying to like process it in my head.
So beliefs, like somebody may be a Christian, somebody may not be a Christian. Somebody might say like they have Christian beliefs, but then they could both have the same values of like love and kind of like,
yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
And that might not be the best example either, but I don't have the same belief as you, but I do have similar values as you.
Yeah.
Maybe
we can believe different things, but still live and exemplify like our values. Or
you can have a belief in the principles of the Bible and Christianity, but your own values are not some of those things too. And because it might not line up, you think it should be that, and that's probably why you're having a lot of internal conflict and struggle day to day, because it's not really lined up. It's like, oh man, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, or I'm not doing this.
That's a good one.
So like, yeah, like maybe doing drugs and having sex before marriage and whatever else, like you think you wouldn't want people of that belief to also know or, be open about. But that's because your values are not actually in line with some of those.
Okay.
Does that answer it?
No, that was helpful.
Okay.
That was helpful. I was like, I think I understand, but it's like, I don't just want to be like, yeah, okay, I understand, just to be like, cool. I'm like, no, I actually want to think about that.
I had to see a few different examples too, because I wish I knew the exact ones that they had too, because then it was like, oh, okay, I kind of get it now. But good values are also, they're evidence-based. So these are evidence-based things. They are constructive and they are controllable when you're talking about what the values. But it's not a good value or it's a belief if it's more so emotion-based, destructive, or uncontrollable. So if you don't really have any control over it, how that plays out, like that's not really a value.
Oh, that makes sense. And I like controllable because you said it's who you are, right? And so that's very controllable. Like,
yeah, I can control what I say and I can control what I do. And so those things that I do reflect my values.
Absolutely. So now that we kind of know what they are and what they're not, what are some examples of values?
Oh yeah, these are just a bunch of words because I was like, man, like even in trying to think of like where do you start when you're trying to think of what they are? Courage, empathy, self-awareness, hard work, ambition, independence, sexual confidence, kindness. So it's like just a variety.
Yeah, I was about to say, and a lot of them probably like family first, like always like giving back, trying to make the world a better place, like keeping your word. Like back to that loyalty point. I work with kids, and I asked them, I was like, what is your value? What's something you value about yourself? I'm loyal. That's everybody's like first thing. Like, what does that mean? You know what I'm saying? I keep my word. Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and I mean, that's one of, I would say, the most important values, especially to yourself.
I was about to say to yourself.
And if you don't keep it to yourself, then you probably don't keep it to others. Or if you don't keep it to others, you probably don't keep it to yourself. So I think that probably goes hand in hand. But those are just some examples if you kind of needed somewhere to start as far as thinking about what's the range of like what could be considered a value. And now, so that we kind of have now that we have a better idea rather of what values are, how do you figure out what your personal values are?
I would say sitting down to kind of look at your life and kind of see like how, like what your decisions are and like what you spend the majority of your time doing. Cause you can say like, man, I really value health, but if you don't work out and you don't eat healthy and you don't do that, it's like, bro, do you really? Or do you think you should and it sound good?
Yeah, that's assessing it, and comparing it to your life. So, the example you used was good. Another example is, do you say you value hard work but spend most of the day watching Netflix? Do you say you value honesty but you often lie to a partner? Another thing is, recognizing which things are actually beliefs and which are values. Because one thing I read said that a lot of things that we think are values are just crappy beliefs in disguise. And so if you're mentioning something, you're thinking, is this my value or a value for me? Notice if you have fear or anxiety attached to that. Maybe it's really connected with what you think you should be doing or something else that overlaps with that. And it's probably not a value in that case.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I was thinking through. That helped.
So kind of go back to the other example. It's like if you're, you might say my value is chastity. No, you might not say that though. You might have a belief that, you should be a pure body or whatever, but like really in saying that you're upset because you really have all these desires and like all these things you're not really acknowledging, whether you're doing them or not really. Like, so that's kind of one of those things where it's like you're bound to have kind of like a weird anxiety attached to it. You don't want to talk about sex with your parents or with anybody, and you're repressed, all these other things, but that's a crappy belief and thinking that these things are wrong or like there's shame attached to certain things versus having a good, healthy value. I
think that's a great example, and it kind of ties back into if you're still trying to figure out the difference between like beliefs and values. Like if you think that you shouldn't be a sexual person because of how Christianity has taught you not to be or whatever, but like you really don't mind it and you don't really feel convicted, but you feel bad about it only because like then it's a belief, and you don't have to live by that.
Another thing that you should do is ask yourself, what does a successful and meaningful life look like to you? And then when you've kind of thought about what that life looks like, what do you want from that life? So like, why do you want it? I think it's always in the why that you realize what's important to you. So you can say, yes, I want a small home and, cute little family. And I work like 6 hours a week, but everything's taken care of, whatever. But it's like, okay, now why do you want to live that way? What is it that's important to you that makes that the life you want to live?
Yeah, and you can keep asking yourself why until you get to that bottom question. It's like, oh man, I want, a husband that pays for everything. Why? I mean, well, that's obvious, but why? Just keep asking yourself why till you get to that bottom answer. Like, man, I like security. Boom. Or whatever. Like, I like stability. Like, I want a life that I can control, which that's not me. But if that's you, that's cool too. And I think the main thing here is like having self-awareness to recognize like where you are and if that's in alignment with where you want to be. And if it's not, that's okay, that you're human and that you can redefine and readjust as you see fit and as you grow as a person and as you get older and experience different things. Like your values might change and that's okay, but you still have to be like aware of where you are and what they are.
Yeah, I think it's always redefining, readjusting, because we're always like learning more about ourselves as we're in different situations, especially, and like, trying to be self-aware around what's happening, how did we get here, like what's going on. And then one thing about it too is that when you've decided, okay, these are my personal values. So let's say you have a small list that you can do exercises to engage your life more with those values. So it doesn't just mean like, okay, this is who I am and like that's just that. But if these are some of the values that have shown in your life, like this is something important to me, now you can strengthen that and you can probably get a little closer in alignment across the board in your life if you are more intentional about adding that in as well. So we have 4 steps to living in your values to end the episode. So and this is something I guess we kind of do like this week, for example. So we'll end up with that. So you can pick a value. It could be one you already have or one that you want to decide to embody. So let's say if like honesty was not my strong suit, but I'm like, damn, that is kind of important. Then maybe that's something like, I'll be like, you know what? I really do want to embody that more. What does that feel like? What does that look like? Because maybe I haven't due to other whatever has happened in my life or, whatever your past story might be. But if you're like, you know what, that's affecting people, something like that, then you can still choose to like work on that and make that a value for you. So putting that out there.
So you pick a value, you go through all of that, and then you set goals that are aligned with that value. Like what does honesty look like, feel like, what can it be? And set goals to make sure that you're in alignment and to give yourself something to like work towards.
And I'm trying to think like what examples of some goals could be if we were saying like honesty, for example. And I would say that probably even just maybe thinking about what are some things that you just haven't really said that you may think you need to say or like it's been bothering you, and say those things, or maybe write them down first and then see like, oh, do I need to say this to somebody? Another thing might be journaling or challenging yourself, like in talking to yourself and your own self-talk. Like I'm going to really get down to the bottom of like whys within it so I can be really honest with myself about, oh, why am I doing this right now? Or why do I want that right now? Or, with your decisions and like maybe challenge yourself to get honest answers. So you could think of like some real goals of real things to do.
I was about to say, yeah, I was also just thinking about if you're like if you have people pleasing tendencies or try to like make people feel better, like looking at what your responses are typically to things, or like, how you doing? Oh, I'm wonderful. Knowing damn well you're not. Or like, just being more cognizant and pausing before you give your cookie cutter answers for things, and just giving yourself that pause to actually answer like, actually today's pretty terrible with people who you feel trusted, but taking that time. But it also starts with yourself, because if you don't know how you're really feeling or what's going on, then you can't really be honest with other people.
That's real. And then along with those goals, just make that decision to like really be honed in and focused on that value, so that in your decisions, and the things that you're doing day to day, you're really getting closer to those goals and like you're really doing those things. I didn't really think about it in conjunction with this exact list, but like recently, I guess I have kind of done this. I've been I don't want to say trying. I have been much more just open and like just saying it and or talking through it in a way where it's like, instead of just not saying anything, I'm like, trying to figure out what what it is, or I'm nervous about saying this, but, or like, like just get to it and like getting it out. And then I've noticed like the more I've done that, like, I don't want to say it's necessarily easier, but the more I do it, the more I'm like, oh, this is like how easy it can be, because now a person actually knows like, oh, okay, like even if it starts an argument or even if something happens, it's like, okay, at least you communicated. And now it's like, oh, I can actually see results because I communicated a thing instead of just being like, you know what, like, never mind. Like, you just kind of shut down sometimes. It's like, you're not going to get it, or I don't even know what I'm thinking about, which is it. Some of the times it's like, you don't even really know what you're trying to say. But for sure, I think that this works. And then the last thing of experiencing the benefits of doing it is like, oh, okay, so now it's like a little bit easier to like continue doing that.
Absolutely. And I love that because I think so often we tell ourselves stories of like why we can't do things or say things or ask for things, or, oh man, nobody's going to listen if I talk about it, or people are not going to help me if I reach out. But the moment you do, you realize that the narrative that you're telling yourself kind of co-creates your life, and not kind of, it actually co-creates your life and everything around you. And so by picking something, by setting goals, by making decisions and actually implementing them, you're able to experience how it feels. And you're also able to get feedback from the universe as you start to put that energy out there. I would also say if it's something that you're working towards, like let's say you want to be fearless, right? You just want to be bold and be fearless. And maybe that's not where you are right now. Start small and envision yourself doing those things that you want to do. Like, man, I want to start, doing pole dancing and posting that on the thing. Maybe you're not there yet. Maybe you haven't even taken a class yet, but you can envision yourself doing it and kind of feel those emotions, and it'll keep you high, but it also brings that energy into your life.
Yeah. It's definitely, your decisions are like self-fulfilling, your values are, because to your point, like you never get help if you don't need people. So like always feeling like, oh, I don't need people. It's like, oh, okay. So like you don't have people. And then you're kind of always upset. Like I see people tweet all the time. They're like, man, people don't step up for you when you need them or whatever. But then like everything else you do gives the energy like, oh, I don't need anybody, or I don't want help. So it's like, let's just be real here. Mm-hmm. Do we have any shout outs for this week?
No.
Well, I want to just close this out then by saying to really think about what your values are. If you don't have a list already, I would just challenge you to maybe come up with a few. I don't think there's like a number you have to have. You don't have to try to overdo it. Don't underdo it with just like one, but maybe think of like 4 or 5 things, or 3 to 4 things. I would like to do that. I'm sitting here like, damn, I need to make some time for it. But
absolutely.
I think that would be like a good little journal prompt, just to really think about what your values are. And, or I would recommend that you Google like just some words for values. Then maybe sometimes like when you see options and things, it kind of helps you like, oh, okay, yeah, that's something that I think is really important to me or is shown in what I do. And then it's like looking at it and being aware of it, make that like your own like kind of mission statement for, hey, every time I'm making a decision, does it check off these values? That way it's like you always know what's right or wrong for you to be doing because it didn't line up or lined up. And so it just makes it an easier way to move forward with everything.
Practical, tactical, you're supporting yourself, you're getting to know yourself, and like it gives you guidance so you don't have to be confused about things or worry about what you feel like you should be doing. So I'm excited. I'm like, let me write that down so I can do it.
And then your question of the week goes with the episode this week. Carly, what personal value will you embody this week? Like do these 4 things to live in this week. Or maybe like a category of something. If you don't have an exact.
I'm pondering. Do you already know?
Oh, you're asking
me?
Yeah.
I was about to say, for
mine?
you. Yeah. I was about to say, well, I'm thinking.
There's probably a couple I could choose, but I think I am going to go with self-confidence. But I don't know if that's the best term, but what I want to do is embody that, like, I'm really that person. Like, I really know what I'm doing. And when I'm talking to people, like, I really know what I'm doing. And just to do that as I have, like, more opportunities coming up, more people I'm talking to, to, like, just not to think small and to stay in that space of self-confidence and what my expertise is as I move through the week.
Man, I got hype listening to that. I love it. I felt the energy.
Look, I
felt it.
I got email from Disney right now. Like, what's going on? I just saw it too. I'm like, dang, I did no work today. Now I saw an email. Like, hold up, maybe I should answer that.
But you got to do that. Actually, well, I don't shout out, but one of my homegirls, Amanda, was just posting about that. She was like, yo, I took an intentional day off to pour into myself. She likes taking dance classes, to do that, to go read, to go rest. Mm-hmm. She came back and had 3 offers, 3 new clients in her inbox.
Yeah, sometimes it's like a reminder, like, yeah, you don't have to go that hard all the time.
I want to mine, and that brought me to mind, abundance. I want to live a life where I trust that everything that I need is already here, that I have all the love, all the finances, all the things that I need. And I want to be able to walk like that. Like, I already know I have some limiting beliefs around it. So we're going to challenge those, but I want abundance in everything.
Abundance as a value. That is good, because that's like a mindset that you can operate from.
Absolutely.
So if that was on our list, like, so self-confidence and abundance was 2 of the values on our list in making decisions. Am I making this decision with self-confidence and making this decision knowing that, like, this is I'm moving in abundance and not moving maybe out of fear of lack? That would be the opposite.
Yep. Yeah, okay. About to say, out of fear of lack or fear in general.
Yeah, that's good.
Because knowing that even if you don't get that client or that whatever, that you already have what you need and it's going to be better than what you thought you needed or thought you, whatever it was.
Yeah, that's good. So this week, think about your personal values. Think about how just defining those could really be a game changer for you and your life and your decisions moving forward, especially if, like we talked about towards the beginning of this episode, you see different areas in your life where you do kind of have a little bit of a struggle or a push and pull, and maybe specifically think about those areas as well. Like, what do you really value? And then how can you just use that to make it easier to, like, move in that direction?
Absolutely. Please hit us and let us know, because I'm excited. Like, I'm hyped listening to both bars. If y'all can't tell, I'm talking so fast. But yeah, hit us at Carly's Couch on all social media platforms and let us know what value you're working to embody.
Yep. Thanks for listening as always, and we'll talk to you next week.
Peace.